Hello, Out Entrepreneurs. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to episode number 37 of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. So on today's show, we are recording live from the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce's annual conference in Las Vegas. So I'm super excited to be here with Matt Skallerud, who is joining us all the way from the Big Apple. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Well, thanks.
I always ask this. So are you ready to inspire fellow out bosses?
I am ready.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. So a little bit about Matt. He is the president of Pink Banana Media. His company specializes in LGBT online marketing, empowering clients to connect with the rainbow family. And Matt began his career online in May of 1995. So he is totally an early adopter. I love that. So I'm very, very excited to hear all about his work starting in the 90s. And also, he is the former board chairman of the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association. He served on the board of Travel Gay Canada and the LA LGBT Chamber of Commerce. He's actively involved with key national LGBT organizations. I love that, including the NGLCC. So you're coming home to family. It's like a big reunion, right? Yep. Yeah. So I'm excited. And to kick us off, just tell us a little bit more about your business and what makes it unique.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been doing in many ways, the same thing for 22 years now, which is we just help companies figure out how to reach the LGBT marketplace online. Yeah. But where we're unique, we're not really constrained. We used to have our own websites once upon a time. Sold all that. Now we're not constrained. Now when clients come to us, we don't have to just say, "Oh, we're going to try to find the right solution within our own network." Now we're able to say, "Let's try to understand a little bit about who you're trying to reach and where are they," and that way we could work. We started working with a variety of different websites. The folks with Here Media, Q Digital, but then social media kind of came along and started with MySpace and then Facebook, and where we're at today. There's so many great places to be able to figure out how to find them.
Yeah. And I love that whenever I'm online, I always see you on all of the social media applications. I mean, there's so much happening online with marketing and business, and just with Facebook alone, 2 billion users, right? Yeah. And just kind of that micro marketing. There's a lot that you are probably excited about. What's the one thing right now where you're like, this is the one thing, this is the thing?
Well, it makes me, if you thought I was an early adopter before, now I feel like an outlier. But I will preface by saying that back in the day, people used to make fun of me with the whole internet thing and say, businesses and say, like, I think it's like a CB radio and it's a fad and this isn't really a thing. And I thought, I don't think so. But, they're older and wiser, so I'll let them have their say what they need to say. But now I actually believe it's Twitter. I actually believe Twitter is more the future than most of us realize. And you can see it in different marketplaces, different parts of the world. And so that's what excites me the most. Every time when I wake up now in the morning, that's it's just because things keep evolving there. I would say it's like Facebook was almost like our Main Street USA. It was like a small town village but at the time it seemed amazing. But it's maxes out at 5,000. That's like it's great for what it is, and for most of us that'll be all we need. But when it comes to really businesses getting the exposure there, Facebook doesn't really show that. So here at this conference, you're going to see people like George Neary from Miami, or you're going to see the folks from G Network from Argentina. They mix their personal and their business so well, so Facebook really works well for them. Yeah. For the rest of us, we got to struggle. We had to pay. But if you pay, Facebook is amazing because you can target in ways that you can, and with really good targeting. But Twitter is like the big city. And so that's what, so I think it's going to take us all a while to get used to that loud, noisy, it's like there's a lot of people screaming and conversations going on. But after a little while, you move to the big city and you start to make sense of it all. And it's infinitely scalable. There, you're not stuck to restricted like 5,000. There, you can have 1 million people following you. You could follow 1 million back.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I was surprised to hear Twitter as being that next.
Most people are.
That next step. So I'm going to look into that after this. And I think for our listeners, if you're looking for that next entrepreneurial idea, listen to Matt. He knows what he's talking about. Matt, usually people start their businesses for one of two reasons, at least the folks that I talk to. The first is that they feel this drive, they have a purpose-driven idea, they go out and pursue it. A lot of other folks start their businesses because they kind of worked in corporate America, or they were working for someone else, building someone else's dreams out, and just got fed up of trying to fit themselves into a culture that didn't really respect and value who they are. And I'm curious for you, I mean, you were a super early adopter in 1995 with the internet. So what was that moment like when you pre-1995, how did you get into the work that you do?
I was an engineer once upon a time. But as an engineer, I had a great job. It could have been for life. It was a research and development position, lasers and metalworking. But I got bored. And then I went into sales of what I was working on as an engineer. But I'm really lucky because I was also simultaneously growing up with computers and learning computer-aided design and all these different things, the Lotus 123 when it was before Excel and all the stuff we do today. Then the internet comes along, and I was comfortable to play around with it. But what I started to do is once I started to program for it, I didn't think it was really going to become a business. So my transition was just purely that as I started to develop it, it really started to grow into something where it got to a point where I was able to quit my career, my full-time job and my company car. And I had a mortgage too. And so it's like, well, this is a big step, but I feel it's the right thing to do. And I've never looked back. It was the right decision. The company grew exponentially at that point. And it just, like I said, never looked back. And it's been fantastic ever since. But I do know that as I'm working with small businesses, especially, every once in a while, I do bump into people that kind of describe the way you're talking as people that probably don't do well working for someone else. They're really only happy when they're working for themselves. Just
a quick follow-up. Yeah. So you were working as an engineer during a pretty innovative time. Was there anything about being out, or were you out on your job as an engineer that? Yeah.
No. And I actually could say that I learned afterwards that I had probably let it slip a few things here and there as far, because I wasn't really hiding it, but I was definitely not out. And it was a Ohio-based company, very conservative. But then afterwards, it was funny to hear that, they knew I was gay, and they were just, but there was nothing negative. They never treated me any differently. They never let on that they knew. I stayed in touch and stayed good friends with my boss at the time, and it was good to hear.
On that topic of workplace culture, so you're working for an engineering company. Even though people said that they knew that you were gay, can you remember those feelings? And is there something that you do in your business right now just to think about the folks that you either contract with or hire, and trying to encourage people just to bring their whole selves to work?
Yeah, but it's a little different than just the concept of diversity, but their whole selves. I think in today's day and age, especially even another word you can tack on there is authentic self. And, and you hear that a lot through not just employment, but also how people represent themselves as influencers and whether it's real. And in today's world, the concept of being real, I think it's more important than at any time before, because it's such a transparent world out there. You can't hide anywhere. You can't hide these things. So what we do, I translate all that into the folks that we've hired. We would always tell them that we want you to not only be yourself, but we want you to push boundaries. We want you to try things that maybe you're not sure of and make decisions on your own. Because if you make a mistake, we're not a blame game company. We're not going to sit there and try to say, whose fault is it? What we're going to do is first solve the problem, figure out the client needs help. Let's see what went wrong and let's fix it. And then, but if we as a team figure out what went wrong and we fix it, then it's easy just to look and say, okay, well, we pushed a boundary here, went a little too far, and let's not do that again. And that's how we've always been able to kind of constructively move forward and build a company without people feeling constrained or their wings clipped. And kind of for us, it goes hand in hand because it allowed people to really be their true selves at every moment.
It's like the Zappos model, right? Rather than hiring people for skill, you hire people, you assess their talent and try to kind of bring them along with the mission and, put them in marketing or put them in technical writing, whatever their thing is, right? So very, very innovative there. So I'd like to switch just a bit and kind of talk more about your LGBT identity. And so specifically, just thinking about pre-1995, like at that moment when you started your own business, did being gay influence your journey to become your own boss?
Yeah, it's because when the internet came along, looking back, it's clear we made the right decision. But when the internet comes along, I'm in the engineering world, it's all manufacturing. And I wanted to do something. I really wanted to start something because I have dabbled a little bit in the past with a small business thing of my own. So I was comfortable to kind of take that leap to try something more. And I had a choice, either stay in the manufacturing world and just do this totally on my own at night and create something where at least I had all the contacts. I was very current with where things were at. But I was finding all these gay resources out there, but they were very scattered. This was before Yahoo, before Google. And I thought, or should I create something that makes it so that people can find these gay resources? That's all, just almost like a directory. And let's just kind of focus on Southern California. It's where we lived. And let's just try that and see what happens. It's all new, and it's going to push me more because I know that whatever we create is going to be from ground zero. there would be nothing legacy from my career life that I have at that time. I think that allowed me to follow my passion a lot more. My passion was much more in building this business out in the gay world than it was in manufacturing.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you're definitely a connector, and that's how we met. We met online, connecting, and that was your mission starting out. Thinking about business, and this is a concern for a lot of the folks who listen to the show. They're kind of toying with the idea of starting. Obviously, there's a mindset shift that needs to happen. And also kind of negotiating, how out can I be in my business? Can I be out in my business? So I'm wondering if you can reflect on a time as a business owner, and this may be like in the beginning stages where you're starting at ground zero, you're thinking about your revenue streams, your business model. Was there a time in that period where you were struggling with negotiating being out, you were out, or you thought about just covering a little bit around your sexual orientation because you thought, oh, this can be a good paying client, and I feel like if I tell them about my relationship status or who I am, I might lose business. So can you think of something specific there, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about pre-95, correct?
Oh, no, as a business owner, yeah.
Because I was just going to say, because as a business owner and running what became one of the top 3 LGBT websites out there, so there was no hiding at that point. Anecdotally, it was funny that like somewhere like 2 or 3 years after kind of moving on from the manufacturing world, me and my friends stayed at a gay resort in Palm Springs. We're in the jacuzzi at night, and who comes in and pops into the jacuzzi? One of my old clients from the manufacturing world. And of course, he there was a bit of shock on his face, but he chilled out. We had a good evening. But it was just always fascinating me that those worlds could collide even in that space. Now, I always felt bad because his first reaction was, "Oh God, I've just been caught. I've been busted." Fortunately, I think we're better now than we were then. And that's the sort of thing that a lot of people have really wrestled with over those years. But personally, with myself being out there, this has probably been, I'm so used to being completely out, dealing with clients, large and small, that I forgot what it's like to be in that closet.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the liberating piece of being your own boss, and especially starting a business that's so geared to LGBT communities, or at least helping those trying to market to LGBT communities have that right message that is so affirming. And there's still a lot of companies that need your help. For sure.
Think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously you were able to amplify some of the benefits of just being out in your business. How do you see being a gay business owner as an asset to just the world of entrepreneurship? And what are some of your lived experiences as a gay man that contribute to being really effective at running a business?
Yeah. Well, just the gay side all by itself, I would just say that sometimes people have even questioned, I'm digressing and I'll come back, but people have questioned, like, there's been in the marketplace gay wine, gay, all sorts of gay, let's take a product and throw a gay label on it. And I've often reminded them that I think the only thing that ultimately at the end of the day that we'll ever have that we could hold on to in being gay or lesbian or transgender is the social side. And that's who we end up wanting. That's our social circles. So even then, as things have evolved where young people nowadays, their social circles can include people they've grown up with alongside their gay friends and so forth. But that whole concept as far as the social, that's the one piece that we'll always be able to hold on to. And then whenever you're trying to look at, how do I want to, could this business work? If you're always looking at, is there a social component? Travel is a really good example. And so is there always a world for gay travel and so forth to be able to work? If it taps into those areas of being social where you want to be with your friends, and those are the people you either want to hang out with, date, marry, and so forth, that will always keep us connected at all points in between. So I look at all that as kind of, in some ways, kind of more a roundabout answer to the whole idea as far as just what it's like to be, very out there in that space, in the world that we're in today.
Yeah. Considering, you shared a lot of the positives of being out in business. Yeah. What would you want our listeners to really hone in on at this point, just to remember to bring their whole authentic selves, as you say, into their business so that they can really leverage those assets?
You just don't ever hide from it. It even happens to me to this day. I was at with one of our suppliers for buying advertising online. Everything we do and all of our conversations were all about the LGBT ad buying that we do. And yet during the conversation, this woman said, "Oh, and what about you?" And asked me about my wife. And then I had to stop and say, "Husband." And she turned every shade of red because she just she just slipped. She had forgotten, and her mind went back into the mainstream side of what was I hate to quote normal. I've had that word used yesterday in a conversation where somebody said, "Oh, I didn't mean to say normal. I meant something else." So what is the word? What is the word that they're thinking?
Yeah.
Mainstream, conventional, whatever it is, they'll slip into it once in a while. And the only thing we could do is just continually, without, I don't want to ever embarrass anybody. And I didn't make her feel bad. I just simply said, "No, husband." And we carried on from there. And we just have to do that. We just have to, you don't want to let them lead the conversation. You don't want to have them say wife and then just shake your head and say yes.
Yeah.
And we've all done that. We've all done those sort of girlfriend, or many of us, I shouldn't say all, but many of us have fallen into that trap because we didn't want to rock the boat at that moment of a conversation. Yeah. But to be able to be yourself and to not really think or worry about those things, and correct folks if they've made some sort of an assumption that they may have been incorrect on. It's definitely, again, it's so much. This is a post-Glee world.
Yeah. It's such a great example, though, because you're hitting on how covering does happen.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this implicit kind of being in the closet, right? Because you're not in that moment. I mean, in the moment that you were in, you were brave enough just to kind of provide some positive redirection, and causing her to really question how she approaches strangers and the assumptions that people make, right? And so I think that small act is something that can really shift hearts and minds, because people are like, Matt's a great guy, and I now may think twice about gay guys, or if that's where people get hung up on. And I think that is an act of just being brave and being yourself.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, absolutely. One additional question before we go to a break, and that is, I know that you're really, really involved with helping LGBT communities. So how does your business give back? Because I know that you've been a longtime advocate for LGBT movement work, and
it's primarily, we're a small company, so it's not like we're not putting a lot of money back into things that we try to say. Everything that we've done has been with our time, especially when it comes to being serving on boards. And we did a lot of that in the 2000s, where I was on the board with IGLTA and a variety of different chambers and so forth, and really trying to be a very active part of bringing forward a lot of the lessons we've learned, especially in the online marketplace, and how that could help these businesses and these nonprofits and these organizations. Even since then, we've worked with nonprofits and been able to really kind of adapt what we do to be able to be a lot more, not just financially viable, but also just we kind of go that extra mile for organizations such as Lambda Legal and so forth. We've actually done a ton of work with them where we just simply help them with a lot of their online marketing strategy, and really treated them very differently in terms of how we deal with our other clients.
Yeah. And time, is huge, right? So you're like kind of watering down, like, we don't give money, but time is so huge. And having worked in nonprofits for quite some time, that volunteerism is amazing, especially board service. So, and I would say for folks listening to the show, as you're thinking about, I really want to start this business, but I don't have the experience or the connections, nonprofit service is such a great way, especially on boards, because for smaller organizations in particular, because you can really, refine some of the skills that you want to add to all of your toolkit, of skills, and at the same time, really make meaningful connections with really amazing people that are constantly inspiring folks like us on this interview. So, at this point, I'm loving the conversation. We're going to take a very, very quick sponsorship break. And for our listeners, please don't go anywhere, because when we return, we're going to get to learn a little bit more about Matt and all of the great work that his business is doing.
HR and diversity professionals. Are you struggling with engaging LGBTQ talent? Do you stay awake at night worrying about limiting litigation risks? Have you considered seeking support around these concerns, but just aren't sure where to turn? Look no further. Rhodes Perry Consulting offers you solutions with the Engaging LGBTQ Talent A to Z certification. This proven 4-week mentorship program delivers skills, offers support, and connects you with other professionals committed to transforming themselves and their workplaces. Learn more about this cutting-edge program by visiting rhodesperry.com. and use the promo code RPC for a 10% discount. Take action and visit rhodesperry.com.
Welcome back, Outbosses. We are now going into our bonus round, where we'll have the chance to get to know Matt just a little bit better, gain some insights on how we can bring our whole selves to work, and then learn one way to stay in touch with Matt and his business after our conversation. So, Matt, are you ready for the quickfire questions?
I sure hope so.
Yes. All right. You're in the hot seat. So in one sentence, what does it mean, and this is your favorite phrase, to bring your whole self to work?
In one sentence. Just simply being as direct, honest, and forthright as possible.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. No need to elaborate on that one. What's one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
Yeah. I'm one of those that gets up at the crack of dawn every morning. I don't want to say I have too much of a routine because that sounds boring, but I have a certain style or way of getting through my things so that no matter what, I'm always able to tackle the rest of the day and, whatever they may be thrown at me based on the fact that I got up early, did exactly what I needed to do, was in the right frame of mind. And then the rest could just, I make up as I go along.
You're my inspiration. I try, I love the idea of waking up at like 5 a.m., 4 a.m. Some people like Tim Ferriss, 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And doing that kind of the miracle hour or whatever, there's a whole book out there if you want to read about it.
I don't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I wake up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you do kind of a full day or is that your?
But I've trained myself to really push it so that the less taxing on the mind things that could be later towards the day. And I do try to do a hard stop at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
But it still shows that I'm probably putting in a 11 or 12 hour day. Yeah. And that could drive you crazy. But if I do the harder stuff in the morning, have a nice lunch, watch The Prophet, which I discovered through NGLCC, and then go back to work and continue on, I can kind of taper things off. I've got other things that are on my list, and if I get to them, then by the time 5 o'clock rolls along, I'm in a nice little happy place.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's good to have kind of your workday defined and still have time for yourself. I feel like that's what is something that makes me feel like a boss is when I can do that. So name one thing that you readily delegate in your business to stay focused on what you're good at.
I try to, especially when it comes to, I'm the best at relationships and the marketing side and getting out in the real world and so forth. And also, I'm like Sybil. I also like to program, so I can do those two very well. So I have a business partner, and he and I have worked together for many, many years, and he balances me out well, where he'll focus on all that stuff when it comes to especially writers and working with people that are coming up with style and creativity, and those are areas that those are not my strong suits. So I'm very much about making it function, and then other people that help me help me with the form.
Yeah.
So I've learned early on just to be able to always make sure I surround myself with creative people.
Yeah. And that's the beauty that you get to choose who those people are, which is great. So this is a new question that we were talking about before the interview. So totally have Matt's consent here. So we were talking about the current administration, and there are a number of questions that I get about, is number 45 good for LGBT businesses or a harm, a danger? And I'm curious, Matt, where do you fall?
Yeah, well, the only reason this one came up is because I was talking to a family member last weekend, and I just said, you'd be surprised that I didn't see this coming. That business is much stronger now, I think partially because of 45. And I think he's inspired a passion. He's awoken something in many of us for a wide variety of reasons. But for us, specifically in the LGBT world, and especially with Anti-LGBT Day, that just a few days ago, we can respond well when it's a fight, and it's a real fight. It's not a fight that we had to, kind of conceive in our heads to make ourselves feel better about something. No, this is a real fight, and we definitely are very good at stepping up to the plate, and that's what I'm discovering. And what happens with business is that the business can grow right alongside that from probably a wide variety of different aspects. All in the field of diversity and inclusion. I
love that. Yeah. There's definitely a silver lining to especially after last week, which at this recording, this is August 1st. So yeah. And it was a rough July, I would say. Yeah. And something that's great being here at the NGLCC conference is seeing so much support from business owners. And as I walked into registration, I saw transgender troops are welcome, right? And I think that was what the sign said, right? Yeah, and just really powerful that we're sticking together in a way that maybe we felt maybe a little fractured, or that all of our rights were secured, after the previous administration that really did a lot for LGBT folks. So I'm toying with this question. So for listeners, let me know what you think, if you like it, and if I should keep asking this of other bosses. But great response.
Think about all the businesses right now that have stepped up to the plate in Texas, or on behalf of Texas. I mean, it's all the Silicon Valley, the Apple, and all that have a physical presence also in Texas, and they are they are being very proactive to say this is not okay.
Yeah.
They never had to do that before, not at this level.
Right. And North Carolina was a prelude to where we're at right now. Before we go, just a few more questions. So can you share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
In that area, I probably have lots to say, but I would just always listen to others. So even though you've got this great idea and you want to get it out there, and that's the important part, get it out there. But don't get stuck on all the details the way you see it. Get it out there just enough so that you can find out how others see it. And I think you're going to always learn, and you're going to find that you didn't have all the answers, but you were open to learning what the answers were. And from there, you can definitely grow to that next level much more effectively, I think. And I think one of the failures I've seen with entrepreneurs is that sometimes they get very, very stuck and things have to be just their way, either the way they originally thought of it or the way they're thinking about it even as things are growing, and not really being open to outside feedback.
Yeah. And I think that's great feedback. Just especially with the internet, you have such an opportunity to take an idea and put it out there, see how your followers or however you connect with people online respond, and test and change. And it happens faster today than it ever did before. So it's a great, really, really solid advice. So last question for you, and this is an easy one. Can you just share where we can connect with you after today's conversation?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's always the easiest. It was pinkbananamedia.com, or we have another website, pinkbananaworld, .com, which taps into more of the other things we're doing on Twitter, and we have a variety of different niche sites that we put out there that are all focused on LGBT business, entrepreneurs. We even have one, LGBT Bold, and one of our first folks we interviewed is here at the conference that I'm looking forward to meeting in person.
Yeah.
So just going to those. You can find us through every medium, on social media, phone, fax, all of it. So
yeah, it's very fun to find Matt. I find like a new Twitter handle every day where I'm like, I think that's Matt. I'm going to follow him again. So definitely look out for him. But Pink Banana Media is the best place to go. And so Matt, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. And for all of the listeners, outbosses everywhere, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. It is always my privilege to connect with you and so many inspiring outbosses like Matt. So as a next step, check out the show notes for highlights from today's conversation. We'll have all things Pink Banana Media for episode 37. Subscribe to the podcast and consider leaving a rating and review in iTunes. And for now, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.